By Michael E. Conner and Joseph L. White. Introduction. In the parlance of social psychology, social work, and urban social scientists, African American fathers have often been described as absent, missing, non-residential, non-custodial, unavailable, non-married, irresponsible, and immature. We have wondered why it is/was so difficult to find literature, research, and comments regarding positive attributes of African American families in general and African American fathers in particular. Surely to have survived and have such a major impact on popular culture, i.e., language, music, style of dress, athletics, and so forth, there must be some inherent and obvious strengths. For some years, the first author attempted to publish comments, observations, and findings regarding involved black dads to no avail. Although he has presented at numerous major conferences, he was unable to publish his work on involved African American fathers. This book fills a void in attempting to offer a broader picture regarding the status of African American males in a fathering role. The purpose of this book is to get beyond the African American father invisibility syndrome and gloom and doom pathology-oriented labels and tell another side of the story about the power of fathering in the African American experience. It is a father story that is for the most part invisible to census takers, welfare officials, survey researchers, popular media, service providers, university professors, and others. But nonetheless, father figures are actively present in the lives of many African American children as mentors, teachers, preachers, old heads, maternal partners, stepfathers, uncles, older male friends, social fathers, and, of course, biological fathers who contribute in a constructive way to the lives of African American children. The voices of black men as fathers, father figures, social fathers, absent fathers, and non-residential fathers were a powerful presence in the Million Man March in October 1995. Some observers call the Million Man March the largest family values rally America has ever witnessed. The 800,000 black men, some say a million, who assembled on the Mall in Washington, D.C., on that sunny autumn afternoon publicly pledged to take care of their children and guide them away from the destruction of inner-city crime and drugs. Husbands and boyfriends promised to respect their wives and girlfriends and take responsibility for their families and improving their communities. Who are these invisible men who provide male nurturance and support to boys and girls and young men and women in the black community? Who are these invisible men who provide guidance, mentoring, supervision, and discipline that translate into opportunities, skill building, knowledge, and often financial resources for their biological and non-biological children? Who are these men who assume the role of social fathers when the biological father is not available and augment fatherhood support systems when the biological father is present? This book will try to bring these invisible social and biological fathers to life. We tell their stories and let the reader hear and feel the vibrancy of their voices as they struggle to meet the challenges of being fathers and black men in America. The editors are intimately connected to the topic of black fatherhood in several ways. Our experience with black fatherhood spans 3 generations. The first editor was reared in a home with active and consistent male involvement including his father, his maternal grandfather, several uncles, a large extended family, male cousins, and family friends. The second editor's father was not present in his childhood family, nor was he closely connected on a day-to-day or, for that matter, month-to-month relationship. Census takers would probably ignore one of us and describe the other as growing up in a father-absent home. Pathology-oriented psychoanalysts would probably say that in our adult lives we are still suffering from suppressed father hunger. The first editor remembers being informed by a history professor during his second year of college that he was deficient due to the lack of positive male role involvement. Yet there were black men available to us as biological fathers, social fathers in roles as uncles, grandfathers, older male cousins, playground directors, camp counselors, teachers, preachers, and the proverbial old heads. In our current lives as college teachers, counselors, mentors, community workers, and social activists, we now fulfill the social fatherhood role for many young black men and women. The first editor, Michael Conner, was the younger child in a 2-parent intact household, where he was impacted by the love, nurturing, training/teaching, and involvement of numerous solid, consistent adult African American males. As a child, Conner actively sought out and was reinforced by uncles, cousins, grandfathers, extended family members, and other older men, including his father, who were coaches, mentors, teachers, preachers, priests, disciplinarians, and old heads to provide him with the guidance he needed to grow, develop, and thrive. His father and uncles were his primary coaches as he developed athletically. Other extended male family members regularly attended his football, basketball, baseball games, and track meets. His parents and several uncles were supportive and instrumental in his academic pursuits. Other family members were invaluable in offering direction and advice as he navigated the tense racial climate of the 1950s and 1960s. Dr. Conner met the second editor in 1965, commencing a personal and professional relationship that continues. He is married with 2 adult children. The so-called father absence phenomenon repeated itself with the children of the second editor, Joseph White, who was divorced from the mother of his 3 daughters almost 40 years ago. Despite his absence from the day-to-day household, he was very much psychologically present in the lives of his daughters, if often unseen. 2 of his 3 daughters, who are now university teachers and administrators, describe him as their role model for how to develop and conduct a career in higher education. In this volume, African American scholars and those doing scholarly work with African American fathers offer insights, bits of wisdom, experiences, and suggestions about the population. The book is divided into 4 sections. In Part 1, we offer some research and theory regarding the impact of fathers on the lives of their children. In Chapter 1, Conner and White note that many black men fulfill a paternal role, but they tend to be ignored by social science literature. Although these men may or may not be the biological father, their impact on their children is significant. This chapter sets the tone for the following chapters where specific examples of invisible African American fathers and men are offered. In Chapter 2, Rabowski, Matone, and Grief consider the backgrounds of fathers whose sons became high-achieving college-educated professionals. They found the fathers were present, educated, married, hard-working, and engaged with their families. The authors suggest 6 strategies of successful parenting. Chapter 3 by Caldwell and White discusses the concept of generative fathering and how it applies to African American men. They suggest that social fathering is a more accurate fit for the generative fathering activities in many African American communities. In Part 2, reactions and experiences from those men who had active, involved, and committed black men in their lives as they were growing up are shared. In Chapter 4, Conner discusses growing up in small town, actually a village, Ohio with active and involved appropriate male role models. He was unaware that other young blacks were not reared similarly until he went to college. Although his small community was largely socially segregated and there was little interaction with whites outside the school environment, the African American community was tight, close, supportive, and nurturing. He did not experience a sense of being deprived and, in fact, was told by several males that no one could beat me but me. Claydi Davis and Percy Abrams Chapter 5 shares experiences living in father-involved homes. They are each cognizant and appreciative of the impact their dad's daily interaction had on their lives. They discuss their father's expectations related to education and responsibilities and are aware of the sacrifices their dads made for them and their families. Their dads were role models, they loved unconditionally, and they offered direction and guidance. Both of the authors are friends and young fathers themselves now and vow to remain close to one another, to their own children, and to one another's children. In Chapter 6, Kenneth Bentley shares thoughts and perceptions he derived via conversations with several successful professional African American men regarding their notions and perceptions of fatherhood, their perceptions of their own fathers, and some potential lessons for other African American fathers and fathers-to-be. Thomas Parham acknowledges the importance of having a positive black man in his life in Chapter 7. He shares that while his strong, committed, loving, and nurturing single mother did an amazing job of rearing her children to be thoughtful, kind, competent, and caring, there are limitations in what women can teach their sons about becoming men. Parham notes the importance of his father-in-law in his life. Through this man, he learned that family comes first and the importance of faith, kinship bonds, education, and a strong work ethic. Part 2 ends with Ann Chan's discussion of Bill Cosby, an enduring icon of the ideal American father. Through Cosby's work on national television, America was exposed to successful black parents who care about their children. White and black responses to the show and the impact on the country are discussed. In Part 3, we share stories from African American men who had problematic relationships with their fathers, but who put forth the time, energy, and effort to work through the issues. In Chapter 9, Father and Son Psychologists, Ivory L. and Ivory A. Toldson, discuss their history, the pain and anguish and the healing. This powerful and moving account of a relationship in trouble uses the African tradition of call and response to tell the story of mistakes, miscues, growth, forgiveness, and healing. As the younger Dr. Toldson writes, a man never outgrows the simple pleasure of receiving simple words from his father's heart. In Chapter 10, Caldwell and Reese discuss how men who did not have a biological father residing in their home while they were growing up struggle with the meaning of fatherhood as they become fathers themselves. Each of the authors acknowledges that numerous surrogate fathers were present and they make a commitment to remain in the lives of their children, and one another's offspring. They note that many fatherless men become productive members of the community and competent fathers. Nnamdi Pole, Chapter 11, shares some experiences, frustrations, and feelings pertaining to his own father's role and activities while growing up. Although anger, disappointment, and hurt were experienced, Pole is able to glean some ideas and notions as to what he learned from those negatives, which might be used to enable him to be a better father, male role model, husband, and friend. He is aware of what he does not want to be. The primary focus of Part 4 is on how to strengthen the role of Black fathers, father figures, and social fathers in family life and child rearing by discovering and internalizing psychological strengths anchored in African American psychological themes, African values, and spirituality. Consciousness-raising groups, fatherhood training programs, and parent education classes that are being utilized around the country to bring Black men into the orbit of children and help them understand the power of father presence in helping children grow up to be confident and capable people are offered. Practitioners and service delivery professionals discuss several programs and services African American men are providing to other African American men and to the Black community. Some of these authors experienced difficulties while growing up, but were able to get their lives turned around in order to be of service to others in the community. These final chapters offer excellent examples of viable programs to help improve the situation in our communities. Julie Landsman tells the story of Shane Price in Chapter 12. Although Mr. Price was reared by his grandparents, the importance of friends and mentors is noted. As an adolescent and young adult, Shane fell by the wayside, deviated from his family's teachings and got involved in life on the streets. Through a series of activities he found himself, the spiritual side prevailed, and he commenced a more responsible lifestyle, caring for his own children and others in the community. He notes the importance of male influences in the activities of the African American Men Project. In Chapter 13, Gary Cunningham discusses the plight of too many young urban Black males. This concern led him to develop the African American Men Project. His focus is on how Black men can help each other succeed. The author shares that during his early years he was without his father or strong male role models. At the age of 13, an uncle took him in and commenced parenting him. In this stable home with a caring, respectful father figure, and other appropriate role models, he was introduced to his culture and history. This interaction provided the background that led to educational and vocational success. His program offers broad services and works to partner with other service-oriented programs. Interestingly, at the age of 46, the author met his biological family and half-siblings. In Chapter 14, Clarence Jones discusses fragile families. Mr. Jones is cognizant that fathers' involvement extends beyond financial contributions, and he suggests other males in the community can father, for example, uncles, male friends, brothers, grandfathers. As relates to his community activities, Mr. Jones indicates service programs must go beyond jobs training and mentor, nurture, and support the formal education of the young men they serve. Additionally, he states that mothers and fathers must be included in the training. Part 4 ends with Conner's Chapter 15. The focus is on the role of men, a program developed for and available to underserved communities in California. The program originated in Long Beach and is now in several healthcare jurisdictions throughout the state. Prior to each part section is a piece of poetry offered by Malia Conner, a Katherine Dunham-trained dancer, San Francisco State University, who has performed extensively throughout the Bay Area, 1985 to 2005, as a dancer, choreographer, and poet with numerous companies. She began her own company in 1991, the Malia Movement Company, dedicating herself to the healing of women through movement. Her poetry is featured on both Mingus Amungus CDs, having been one of the original members of the jazz group. Malia currently lives in Northern California with her 6-year-old daughter. Michael E. Conner and Joseph L.